Yeah, hello everyone. Welcome to our panel, Funding Landscape and Growth, Insights and Strategies for Navigating Investments, where we can learn from our guests about investment strategies in uncertain times and how European innovation can be encouraged with more and better funding. So with me today we have Geza Minchaika, General Partner at AUXO Female Catalyst Fund, a VC fund dedicated to investing in female founders. Then we have Niloufur Garafi, Secretary General at the Euro-Nordic Funding Alliance, an investment consortium that guides members through the possibilities of EU funding and other funding possibilities. And we have Patrick Huke from Porsche Ventures, head of Porsche Ventures, the corporate VC arm from Porsche AG, with a focus on mobility, industrial tech, and sustainability. Thanks for being with us. I'm Alena Kuhlmeier. I'm chairwoman of the Toy to Seed Club, which is a local business angel network here in East Westphalia, and also have a certain background in venture capital investing. As an introduction round, I'll give you each a question, but also would like you to introduce yourself and your company in a bit more detail, as I only introduced you shortly. So maybe Geza, start with you. Tell us a bit more about the mission of AUXO and why you decided to fund female founders and also embrace female investing overall.
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me. And I have two daughters. And when I was young, I wasn't aware that women actually do have power. And when I look at my daughters, they still they can't be aware of it that much, because if you look at the economy, if you look at politics, it's still not the case. So that's why I created this fund. I want, first of all, to show my daughters that, and second of all, and that's to me one of the two main reasons, is I really believe in balance, and I believe that balance is also really good for everyone. So it's also for our daughters and sons in future. It's just important to have balance in the economy and in politics so that everyone profits from it and there's better value add, higher value add, etc.
Great. So how long have you been doing this with AUXO?
So I started angel investing together with two women 2019.
Okay, good. Thanks. And Niloufur, please also introduce yourself, and how is ENFA helping to better leverage public and private funding?
Of course. I'm Nilu. I personally come from 5 generations of entrepreneurs. I started first business when I was 16, and then moved forward, worked in corporates and private, and always tried to bring collaboration between multiple stakeholders in whatever I was doing. And then ENFA is basically a systemic approach towards creating more collaboration. So what we are is that we are a Norway headquartered membership association, like a foundation. A lot of SMEs and startups, they become our members. And on a partnership level, we have accelerators, incubators, VCs, different funds, even municipalities that become our partners. And because we have this diverse group of stakeholders at our disposal, suddenly we would be able to match them into value chains and projects. And we are currently in 20 countries, so suddenly it could expand in multiple countries as well. So we develop projects, we finance projects. Some of them will be specifically developed towards like EU Commission funds or Nordic funds or even US funds when they existed before. And some of them will be made for private equity deals, basically. I can give examples, but when the time's right.
Exactly, perfect. Yeah, and Patrick, what was the idea behind Porsche Ventures? Why did Porsche AG decide to start a CVC?
Yeah, when we started our venture capital activities at Porsche, that was back in 2016, almost 10 years ago. The reason why we decided to kick off this initiative was basically because we realized that there's a lot of innovation and interesting technology firms outside in different ecosystems globally. We realized that innovation cannot or must not only come from within the company, but we also wanted to engage with innovative companies and entrepreneurs in the different regions, and that's why we decided to partner early on. We are a global investment firm today, so we are active in Europe, the US, and China. We invest in three main themes on behalf of Porsche. You mentioned them before. So it's primarily industrial tech, energy transition, and mobility. We do that in the early stage phases. So focus on seed and Series A companies where we typically co-invest alongside other venture capital firms or CVCs.
Okay. Maybe let's start by having a broader look at the funding landscape in Europe, and also the question of, do we have a funding gap? How big is the funding gap also in comparison to other global regions? So maybe Patrick, you can go on, tell us your opinion, and also talk a bit about, as you just said, Porsche Ventures is globally active, how you spread your allocation between the different regions, and what speaks for Europe and what maybe doesn't.
Yeah, sure. So I think when you look at Europe today, there's clearly a funding gap for growth capital. That's no question. What we realize as a deep tech investor, and engineering is very much our DNA at Porsche, is that you see some phenomenal companies in the early stages that get great funding from European or German investors. In the pre-seed and seed rounds, all the way up to Series A. But when it comes to the growth rounds, that's typically where, unfortunately, there's not so much of a choice in Europe. On the positive note, I think that clearly changes at the moment. So we know of a lot of funds that are currently raising for growth investors. I think we understand this gap. That's the good thing about it. And now it's on us to make a change so that even growth rounds in the future can be led more often by European investors. And on the last point on Porsche, we have a very equal split, I would say, even though our investments in China are in a separate structure. But for Europe and the US, it's basically equal how we deploy the capital. I guess in our case, this is also based on the fact that Porsche is a very German company. So very naturally, we also receive a lot of good deal flow in Germany and Europe. So therefore, we also deploy a majority of our funds in this region here.
Can I add one statistic? Because the European State of the European Tech report showed that for every dollar that is invested in Europe, $4 to $5 in the growth phase, $4 to $5 are invested in the US. Just to frame the difference.
Yeah. Exactly, that's a good statistic. I found something similar, that over a 10-year period, a European startup would raise only about half of what a San Francisco startup would raise. But yeah, I think it all goes into the same direction. So, however, I would guess, Gesa, that this funding gap affects female founders even more. And so my question would maybe be also how you handle that with existing portfolio. I mean, one thing is you can do is invest in more companies where you have a certain portfolio, and you need to make sure that they get fresh money, not only from you in this situation.
Yeah, well, I guess the good thing is that female founders are typically capital efficient. So so that makes the gap still a problem, but you can prolong it a little bit. And what you can't really change anything because the difference to before us in terms of female founders isn't that big. It's just the similarity bias is still there. So we do the work that we do, and that is connecting, making a bridge between the diverse teams and the very male-dominated ecosystem. And especially when we go into the growth stage, what we're doing right now is, for example, creating circles of female growth investors and really deliberately going into these networks so that our deal flow gets onto their tables.
Okay. And Nilu, how is ENFA helping to bridge this funding gap that we have now been talking about? Now you can maybe name some examples of the projects you are doing.
Yes, simply by being quite international and very rapid in the decision makings we do. And we also care a lot about systemic investments into our cases, meaning that, let me give you an example. Even right now, today in this conference, there was this startup that they extract the knowledge from people and put it on a platform and digitize it so it could be spread, across various countries. And I said, have you thought about documenting ethnic knowledge from tribes, like in Kenya or elsewhere? And she was like, no, I've never thought about it. I've never been to Kenya. I don't know even what I could capture. And then I was like, it's easy. We already know a potential partner for you that has access to tribes, and they have been doing entrepreneurship training to a lot of women in those tribes. And why not we kind of bring your solution and make them ambassadors? And then when we create a project like this, which of course needs some complementary partners aligned with it as well, we attract public funding to it. There is a lot of EU Commission, and then a lot of philanthropic organizations would show interest into this. So this is like an example of a social type of project. And then when it comes to technology, just sometimes the projects could grow very big. Like a month ago, again, it's a Kenyan case. I just love Kenya. That's maybe I'm biased. But it was again in Kenya. We landed an investment into a prefabrication factory for construction for $100 million investment. And 10 of our startup cases, they're like not super early stage, they're like seed plus or even Series A. They got combined in a consortium to deliver on that like regenerative village project in Kenya. So we're not biased about regions. We don't care about, of course, navigating corruptions and stuff in different markets is difficult, but we're not very context specific. We're broad, and we embrace the differences that exist in different markets that excites us. And that way, we're not limited by any certain markets characteristics as well.
Okay.
If I may add,
Yeah.
I think this complementary approach is key to close the funding gap. Just to make that point very clear, obviously you need the private investors that need to pull the money together to invest, but at the same time, besides the very bold and international founders that we also need to create this big vision so that investors buy into that. I think the third part, and you clearly are a strong advocate for that, is of course public grants and public money as well. So to give you one concrete example, one of our portfolio companies out of Aachen, Sebastian was just on the other stage today, Black Semiconductor. They're basically building the European semiconductor champion. Without a combination of private and public capital, yes, it is impossible to build deep tech champions in Europe. So I think it's great that we have initiatives like yours, yes, which can really combine and co-invest alongside private investors into the future deep tech champions of Europe.
Yeah. Especially just to close the point about public versus private is that especially in the huge growth phase, the projects become very infrastructural. Like suddenly you are kind of fixing the water solution of a whole village somewhere in Middle East or whatever. That is not, that is a very patient capital mindset. Family offices are interested, philanthropic funds are interested, but venture capital funds, PEs, they can't be patient for like 15 years to get return. That is where public funding is very, very instrumental to combine.
Yeah, I think in private funding, let's maybe tie the knot to the corporates. We also just need more than just the VC or PE money that's out there. We need to involve more. So maybe Gesa, taking this one to you, how has that changed from maybe a time where CVC money was not seen so well in the industry? Corporate strategies going into the startups was always a bit of a red flag. We can't really miss out on those funding opportunities anymore.
No, not
right?
at all. And it's actually twofold. So on the one hand, it's exactly about bringing those corporates in as co-investors because we need the capital, and right now those are the people that have the capital. But on the other hand, it's also in the older time, it was mostly strategic investors. And that's why for venture capital, it was kind of like a not so good partner to partner with, because then the exit routes would be very, determined from the beginning. And nowadays, lots of corporates have their CVCs that are just kind of separate from the entity, from the big mothership. And that's why it's not like it doesn't determine the exit route from the beginning, and I think that's also very positive.
Yeah, that's true. Looking at the time a bit, but anything on corporate investment, Patrick, or also from Nilou that you would like to add quickly?
No, I think that was well said. There's clearly a strong increase in participation from corporate investors in venture rounds over the last years, and I think many corporates, not only the big corporates, but also the hidden champions and German Mittelstand understood quite well that by investing and partnering with startups, it's just a great way how to find synergies between like the old economy that can really help scale, and at the same time you bring in very innovative, agile people and technologies into your core business, and that's a win-win for both. So I think that's clearly a trend that we are seeing, and I can only emphasize and encourage every family business or a small or medium-sized business to go on that journey. You don't need to do it on your own. You have great partners in the ecosystem, venture capital funds, and other corporates that already started that journey. And I think the event here shows very clearly that there's a movement that has been started. So. Yeah. Very, very positive on that.
Okay. Yeah. Quick note, maybe. Yep.
Before I started ENFA, I was working in the largest bank of Norway, DNB, and one of the most important projects we did was to redesign the whole procurement processes for startups from scratch. We interviewed a lot of startups and understood their struggles because they were like basically facing the corporate structure just like Microsoft would do to sell their 365 to a corporate. So by just doing that, I heard recently, that was like 4 years ago, now I heard that corporates are more agile when it comes to that as well, and a lot of them actually collaborate with us to strengthen our projects, because we also need to make the projects credible. So they not only bring the money, but they also become the demanding clients in our projects. Then makes the public funding more smooth as well. So that's one of our tactics, using the corporates.
Okay, great, thank you. I think we need to wrap it up. Let's do that quickly. Do you have one word or maybe one sentence to describe the European startup and innovation ecosystem? Or maybe just Gesa, start with you and come back to me.
Awakening.
Awakening, cool.
I would say ready, definitely ready.
Ready.
There was a word in my mind at the beginning called like suffocating. because I think we are a bit by the transition that is happening. But I definitely agree. Awakening, like waking up, and I just want to say, please, please, to all the founders, travel. Just see the world. It's so much fun out there, outside of Europe, and much bigger markets, not just the US. Just open up to it and embrace the opportunities they bring in. Maybe, yeah.
Go
that would be
travel,
good.
come back to the hinterland, and then
Yeah,
see
right.
you all next year. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks.